Monkey D. Dragon's first appearance in the One Piece manga was back in 1999. It took 26 long years for us to get a glimpse of Dragon's past, as the God Valley incident is finally showing what compelled him to leave the Navy and eventually turn against the world order. It's safe to say that this is because Dragon is one of the most important characters in the story and extremely crucial in the final saga, so Oda is saving him for the finale. And with all the visual motifs associated with him, like the wind and the rain and the lightning, it's commonly believed that Monkey D. Dragon possesses a devil fruit. Not just any devil fruit, but the rain god model at that, much like his son Luffy, whose fruit model is the Sun God Nika. In this video, we'll delve into the details about Dragon's possible devil fruit and its inspirations across worldwide folklore, tying them to his character using excerpts from the story of One Piece, other mythological parallels, and real-world examples. Before getting into the content, we'd like to make a very small request to our viewers. Please subscribe to the channel, like and comment on our videos, and hit that bell icon to be notified whenever we upload new content. We'd be grateful to you, and we hope to bring you the best nerdy content in the future, so without further ado, let's get right into it. Where did Dragon get his fruit from? This is a question that might be answered soon, considering God Valley is in full swing in the manga. An island in the West Blue where a 17-year-old dragon working for the Navy found himself during the native hunting competition. It's believed by fans that Dragon got his alleged devil fruit sometime during the God Valley incident due to the existence of 6 to 9 rare devil fruits as prizes. Consider the fact that not only were the celestial dragons, including the Holy Knights, raging throughout the land, the Roger Pirates, the Rock Pirates, Emu via Saturn, and Garp were also present during that situation, and they were duking it out. So it doesn't make sense for a young dragon to escape the island scot-free, especially because he was entrusted with protecting a newborn Shanks and Shamrock, and he had already lost Shamrock. He most probably didn't have a devil fruit, as we see him mostly relying on his weapons, and because God Valley is in the West Blue, it's unlikely that he was much of a hockey user. So it is possible that Dragon had come across one of the devil fruits and consumed it, which allowed him to ultimately escape. Because baby Shanks was found in a treasure chest and the devil fruits were within treasure chests, this theory has a high plausibility. Logia, Paramecia, or Zoan. For the longest time, at least prior to the reveal of Luffy's fruit being a mythical Zone god model, we believed that Dragon would have a Logia, since almost all the top dogs in the show had the same, such as the Admirals, Ace, and so on. Also, with Dragon being associated with factors like the wind, lightning, and rain, one could assume that it wasn't a Paramecia for sure, because unlike Logias, a Paramecia that can generate a separate substance generally generates man-made or at least non-naturally occurring substances. A strong argument to support the idea that Dragon has a Logia is the fact that he has often shown up out of thin air, when he has shown up, that is. The best example for this would obviously be Logtown, where Dragon just appeared out of nowhere. Why this is a convincing argument is because not only does a Logia fruit user generate and control a naturally occurring element or a natural phenomenon, but they also become it. Their physiology turns into that very element, which is what makes them kinda invincible, unless the opponent is using hockey. So, if Dragon is popping out of nowhere and is always accompanied by a wind, as seen with his Logtown appearance or from when he saved Sabo, we can assume that his body turns into the very wind that is so closely associated with him. In fact, in the scene where he brings Sabo to the ship of the Revolutionary Army, we only get a glimpse of his shins and feet hitting the deck, and he almost looks like he landed there by flight. In fact, the wind stopped him completely after that. His ship is also known as the Wind Grandma, and one of his best-known bits of dialogue, among the minimal dialogue he has, would be when he says, "Go where the winds take you." Individually, these little snippets aren't much, but together, they're all clues responsible for the theory where people believe Dragon has the Logia type Kaze Kaze Nomi, or the Wind fruit. So let's analyze Logtown. It all began when Nami came out of a clothing store and realized the air had suddenly gotten different. She mentioned how the barometric pressure had dropped, which meant that a storm was on its way, implying that it wasn't something a navigator of her talent had anticipated. This was confirmed not long after, as she once again mentioned how dangerously low the air pressure had gotten. She even mentioned to Usopp that she saw dark clouds in the eastern sky, everything signifying that a storm was coming. And this was all taking place while Luffy was at Roger's execution scaffold, while Buggy, Alvida, and Kabaji were trying to have him killed to collect his bounty. To top that off, Smoker and Tashigi were gearing up to take care of the pirates as they were causing a ruckus. This meant that if either the pirates who came for Luffy's bounty or Smoker succeeded, Luffy would not be able to enter the Grand Line. After a miraculous lightning strike saved Luffy from being executed by Buggy, a downpour followed. Smoker realized how, with the sudden rain, came a wind that was blowing towards the west, which was something that would have helped Luffy out with his plan to sail the Grand Line. At the moment, Smoker assumed that it was as if some force was willing for Luffy to survive. And he wasn't wrong. Not only was the tailwind destined to help Luffy, but the rain meant that Buggy's underlings would not be able to burn down the Going Merry as they had planned. Eventually, Smoker engaged Luffy in a battle where the latter was completely outmatched as he was unable to deal with Smoker's Logia physiology. Fortunately for Luffy, Smoker was stopped by Dragon. This was followed by a wind blast attack that caused all the Navy soldiers around to get blown off. Ultimately, the Straw Hats managed to set out for the Grand Line while the winds blew and a storm raged, not to deter them but to support them. While not confirmed, it seems evident that Dragon had something to do with the sudden onset of the storm, which also plays on the line, the D will bring another storm. There's also a correlation between this and the fact that Luffy is from the Windmill Village in Goa Kingdom. But then again, as you can tell, there's more to it than just the wind, and judging by the trend of things, Dragon is too important to have a regular Logia Devil Fruit. Unlike other Logia users, Dragon's alleged abilities seem to be multi-dimensional, as the current egghead opening more or less confirms that the lightning strike responsible for saving Luffy from his execution was caused by Dragon in some way. Nami's comments on the changes in air pressure, temperature, and so on indicate that Dragon's powers lean towards that of a mythical zone, which is more likely anyways considering his name is Dragon. One could argue for a paramecia, as Whitebeard's earthquake-causing ability is of a paramecia, and we believe it would be quite cool if Dragon had a storm-causing paramecia fruit over a Logia or even a mythical zone, as we've seen enough of the latter in Wano. Him having the paramecia-type weather fruit is a popular belief, but it seems unlikely as that would be way too broken of an ability. Dragon's constant wind motifs also refer to something specifically related to the wind and storms and the like instead of absolute weather control, which would mean a myriad of other abilities, such as being able to cause heat waves and snowstorms. To top that off, weather is way too closely connected to Nami, so making weather manipulation the whole shtick of another character would be a bit disingenuous to one of the most important members of the Straw Hat Pirates. Either way, the most popular belief is that Dragon has a mythical zone, and not just any mythical zone, but a god model at that, much like his son, Luffy. Why is Dragon the rain god? Like many other One Piece theories, we go back to Skypiea for this one. The core conflict in the arc is between the Shandians and the Skypieans as they fight for control over the sacred land, or Verth, which the Shandians consider to be their home. In this arc, we found out that Shandians performed human sacrifices, as seen when they were about to have a young girl sacrificed to the Sun God, Rain God, Forest God, and Earth God due to an outbreak of disease among their people. The reveal of Luffy's fruit being a god model of the Sun God Nika, followed by the Harley texts mentioning the Forest and Earth God, confirm their existence in some way. This leaves us with the Rain God, someone who's been mentioned already and is currently highly anticipated. But why do we associate the same with Dragon? Well, for starters, he will technically not be the Rain God, but someone who has the will of the Rain God, similar to Luffy and Nika. Considering the importance of the Monkey D family and Dragon's role in the grand scheme of things, he's likely to have a very important mythical zone, especially due to the multi-dimensional nature of his powers, similar to how Kaido could adopt different forms, blow fire, create clouds for flight, and so on. More so than that, there may be a connection between the Shandians and Monkey D. Dragon. The inspiration between both has something to do with the Americas. Dragon would be Brazilian in the real world, and the Shandians represent indigenous Americans with their face tattoos and the fact that their own lands were taken away from them. Dragon too has his trademark facial tattoos, but he didn't always have them. Heck, he didn't even have them when he went to pay homage to Professor Clover and O'Hara following the Buster Call. But he got them at some point, maybe after realizing the existence of a connection and to stand for something as he became the figurehead of the Revolutionary Army. In fact, we did see him in a desolate O'Hara with a scarf tied to his thigh, which held the same motif as his face tattoos, so clearly this isn't a random design choice, but something with a deeper meaning. Mythical Zone. The devil fruit most popularly believed to be possessed by Monkey D. Dragon is a mythical zone, specifically the Rain God model as we've discussed, but what the exact model might be is heavily debated. What we believe is that the model probably takes inspiration from several sources, mythologies, and folklore, some more than others. Shenlong. Let's start with Shenlong. A spiritual dragon from Chinese mythology, you might recognize this name from Dragon Ball Z. In the original mythology, this serpentine dragon is associated with good fortune and the power of weather. He's the dragon god of the tempest and the master of the rain, responsible for governing rain, storm, and clouds. If offended, he has the power to cause bad weather, thunderstorms, drought, and floods. Within the One Piece world, we see two types of dragons: the traditional serpentine East Asian dragon and the avian European dragon. Shenlong belongs to the first category, and Monkey D. Dragon, who has dragon right in his name, can be associated with the same. This is due to Dragon being a benevolent character in the show, as dragons are depicted as malevolent in Western folklore, but usually benevolent in Eastern folklore. What's even crazier is that the symbol of the Revolutionary Army depicts a creature similar to a stereotypical winged Western dragon, the malevolent force that the army opposes. Considering the spiky head of the symbol, some believe that the symbol refers to Imu, whose world order is directly opposed by Monkey D. Dragon, creating the Shenlong versus Imu situation, a matter of the benevolent Eastern dragon opposing the malevolent Western one. The world of One Piece has seen a great flood before, which is directly responsible for its island ecosystem instead of retaining continents. And we know continents have previously existed in the One Piece world, as the castle in Marie Joie is actually called the Pangaea Castle. It could be that the previous wielder of this fruit had caused the flood with their powers. In fact, the Red Line, the one place where one can live without worrying about flooding, is referred to as the blood-soaked serpent by the Elbaf giants. And finally, the Revolutionary Army's ship, the Wind Grandma, boasts a serpentine dragon that looks quite similar to Shenlong, similar to how the Thousand Sunny boasts a sun-like maned lion. Susano. Another possible inspiration is Susano or Susano no Mikoto, a god or kami from Shinto mythology. Susano was a deity and a wild god of the sea in storms. He had contradicting characteristics, however, as he had opposed the heavenly order and gotten banished for defiling his sister, the sun goddess Amaterasu's sacred space. However, he later attained heroic status on Earth for slaying the eight-headed serpent known as Yamada no Orochi. We know that the Marines and the Navy in the One Piece verse are responsible for maintaining the heavenly order and protecting the celestial dragons. But clearly, God Valley becomes a turning point for the young Navy recruit Dragon, who realizes that the world order is wrong and eventually works against the system, as seen with his antics in this arc. Naturally, the next step is of him leaving the Navy. After being banished from Takamagahara, that is, the Shinto heaven realm, Susano performed the heroic deed of slaying Yamada no Orochi on Earth, by extension saving the family and their daughter, Kushina Dahime, who was being terrorized by the creature. Similarly, Dragon leaves the world by protecting this heavenly order, but fights for the common people. Of course, Susano and Dragon aren't a copy-paste parallel, because the celestial dragons are proper evil, but keep in mind that within the One Piece verse, propaganda has convinced people that the government is benevolent. Susano was also brother to Fujin, the god of the wind, and Raijin, the god of thunder. Dragon seems to possess both abilities of the wind and thunder, contributing in his ability to create storms. As a result, it would be wrong to say that his devil fruit model is Susano, but clearly, Oda has taken inspiration from several wind and storm-related deities across myth and folklore for Dragon, so it's natural that he would refer to his own culture as well. Thunderbird. The Thunderbird is a deity known across several Native American mythologies, stemming from the Iroquois and Algonquin tribes, and it happens to be a good inspiration for Dragon's ability. For starters, the bird creates thunder by flapping its wings and lightning from its eyes and beak, representing power and strength. As per the folklore of the Menominee tribe from northern Wisconsin, the Thunderbirds find pleasure in performing deeds of greatness. They control the rain and hail and oppose the great horned snakes who threatened humankind. But, more importantly, they are the messengers of the great sun. Similar to Susano being Amaterasu's brother, who is the Shinto sun goddess, there's a correlation between he who creates the storm and the one who represents the sun. Among the Algonquin people and their mythology, the Thunderbird is responsible for controlling the upper world. In contrast, the underworld is governed by the great horned serpent, bringing the two factions into eternal conflict. The Thunderbird fights the creatures of the underworld using its lightning bolts. This mirrors Dragon's conflict with the world government, who bear the name of God but are more akin to demons and the devil itself. While several tribes have their differences when it comes to Thunderbird folklore, these divine beings are universally seen as protectors who, when necessary, intervene on behalf of the people, much like Dragon's Revolutionary Army. There's also the Hurricane, a Kishmaya god of fire, storm, and wind. This being was involved in creating humanity and caused the Great Flood. This plays into our theory that the previous wielder of Dragon's Fruit might have caused the event that flooded the world, as it's not confirmed that Imu is responsible for the action. In fact, in a video made by the creator, Ohara, he decoded the lyrics of Bink's Sake and came to the conclusion that Joy Boy and his team might have been responsible for causing the world to get flooded, but if they did do it, they probably had good reason to do so. Similarly, the Hurricane is revered as a deity who can cause rains beneficial for agriculture and abundance, but also rains that cause destruction. The god fruit models do tend to have that air of duality to them, as seen with how the Elbaf giants spoke of Nika. Some called him the warrior of liberation, others called him the warrior of destruction. Luffy himself is quite goofy in Gear 5, but is shown to look dangerous from the point of view of his opponent. Similarly, if Dragon does possess the rain god fruit, he too would show off a duality similar to that of his son as the harbinger of storms. Among the Iroquois people exists the legend of the Hino, a powerful thunder and storm god who had slayed a giant serpent and destroyed evil. He also assists the sun deity, cementing the beneficial dynamic between the sun and the rain god across folklore. Vayudev. During the climax of Luffy's fight against Kaido, Luffy used the attack Bajrang Gun, which confirms a connection between him and the Hindu monkey god Hanuman, who, in his childhood, mistook the sun for a ripe mango and tried to eat it. He was also known as the Son of the Wind, as his divine father was Vayudev, the wind god. Of course, Vayudev did not raise Hanuman, which is unironically what Dragon did as a father too. Hanuman's earthly father was Kasari. Meanwhile, his mother, Anjana, was a celestial nymph or Aspara cursed to be reborn on Earth after allegedly throwing a fruit at a sage, bringing her to the realm of the mortals. On Earth, she was married to the Venara chief Kasari, with Venaras referring to a race of humanoid monkey or simian humans. Due to Anjana and Kasari praying to Lord Shiva with great devotion for a son, she was blessed with Hanuman, who acquired a part of Lord Shiva's energy and ended up with incredible strength and supernatural powers. Meanwhile, it's believed that Vayudev infused his divine energy into Anjana to help her conceive Hanuman. Following this, Anjana's curse was lifted and she returned to heaven, while Hanuman went on to be raised by his earthly father Kasari, similar to how Luffy was raised by Garp, his grandfather, while his father Dragon was perpetually missing in action except for very specific moments like when Dragon aided Luffy in escaping Logtown and entering the Grand Line. Similarly, once, Vayudev helped out Hanuman to protect him from Indira. Both Luffy and Dragon have some similarities to Indra, the god of lightning in the heavens, as Dragon can seemingly cause lightning strikes, while Luffy has literally played with lightning by turning it into rubber. In one of the scenes, he held a lightning bolt and threw it at Kaido. His knockout attack, the Bajrang Gun, also refers to lightning, as Bajrang refers to one whose body is as strong as lightning, while Hanuman himself is known as Bajrang Bali, as Bali refers to strength and might. This is also a nod to Sun Wukong, the Monkey King, who is invulnerable to lightning, much like Luffy, and can control the same. Meanwhile, Sun Wukong himself can manipulate winds and storms, unlike Luffy. This attribute has been given to Dragon instead, as his presence is always followed by the wind. In fact, in the One Piece anime, during Logtown, we visibly witnessed a greenish gust of wind come out of nowhere as Luffy was fighting a lost battle against Smoker, following which Dragon arrived to help his son out. Amaru. The most convincing inspiration for the rain god model is the deity from Incan mythology, Amaru. This is a name we've read before in One Piece and seen with the Enero cover story on the moon, where he had awakened his fruit and used the 200 million volt Amaru attack. First of all, we've established a relationship between Monkey D. Dragon and the Skypiea arc while discussing Dragon's status as the possible rain god due to the Shandians. If Dragon were to be a descendant of the Shandians, it would also make Dragon a descendant of the Moon People, much like Neru, who is a Birkin, with Shandians, Skypians, and Birkins being races from the moon who came down to the blue planet as the latter had better resources. However, Oda has mentioned that in the real world, Dragon would be Brazilian, tying him closer to South American native culture than North American. And this brings us to the Incas from the Peruvian highlands who believed in the deity Amaru, a huge double-headed serpent known for dwelling underground. As per the Incas, Amaru is often depicted with wings, a tail, and bird-like feet to make it resemble a dragon. Folklore also describes the Amaru as a dragon or chimera, with it being considered a serpentine or dragon-like deity. The Andeans considered the Amaru to be a dragon or mythical serpent as well. Of course, Amaru is often associated with the weather and factors like storms and hail, among other things, like wisdom and the rainbow. As per motifs, Amaru has often been shown emerging from the center of a stepped mountain of the pyramid motif in Bolivia's Gateway of the Sun. The deity is renowned for its ability to transcend borders, traveling across the physical world and the spiritual realm. Amaru also represents the unity of opposites, as it interconnects several aspects of life and brings balance among opposing forces. It causes rain that falls from the sky to earth, connecting the two physically separated domains and creating life as collateral. But life also needs the sun to exist, spiritually connecting Luffy with his father, irrespective of whether the two want to acknowledge each other or not. Amaru is also known as the one who brings winds of change and revolution, directly connecting him to Dragon. But to put the final nail in the coffin for this theory, you need to look at the markings on the deity's tail. It looks very, very similar to Dragon's facial tattoos, which he was never born with, and if he did get his fruit following God Valley, it was still not something that manifested naturally following his consumption of the fruit. When we see him in Ohara following the Buster Call, Dragon had not formed the Revolutionary Army yet, and he is also devoid of his facial markings. However, he's shown wearing a handkerchief around his leg which holds the same markings, signifying that Dragon is aware of something specific that is instrumental to, if not his abilities, then at least his will. Dragon might have gotten a permanent tattoo on his face eventually to represent his people, allegedly, with the tattoo mirroring the markings of the Native Americans. On the topic of Incas and the indigenous, the last leader of the Inca was Tupac Amaru, who met his demise after being executed by the Spanish. Now, cut to the 18th century, where history saw the rise of a rebel leader known as Tupac Amaru II. He claimed Tupac Amaru to be his ancestor and was instrumental in the rebellion or uprising led by the Mestizo rebels, Aymara, and Quechua tribes as they sought to bring an end to the rule of Spanish colonialism in Peru. He was eventually captured and executed by the Spanish, much like his supposed ancestor. But the real parallel here begins with the late 20th century movement known as the Tupac Amaru Revolutionary Movement, quite obviously based in Peru. The name was an homage to Tupac Amaru II. In the One Piece verse, Dragon's role would be partially connected to Tupac Amaru and partially connected to being someone who has inherited the will of Amaru or the Amaru adjacent deity and acquired its god fruit as a result. The revolutionary movement is a clear parallel to the Revolutionary Army, more so because the Peruvian government designated it a terrorist organization. But of course, the revolutionary movement didn't seek to overthrow Spanish colonists as Peru had already gotten its freedom in the 19th century. Instead, it was a Marxist-Leninist guerrilla army seeking radical revolution against the existing Peruvian government by removing all imperialist elements and establishing a socialist state. Also, Dragon's face in his design is quite similar to that of the original Tupac Amaru's, adding weight to the inspiration behind the character. In many ways, Dragon's revolutionary army is associated with leftist ideology due to its anti-authoritarian stance, as they wish to overthrow the existing world government and liberate the people by fanning the flames of revolution. As the original Peruvian movement was also seen as an alternative to another militant group called the Shining Path, one could say that the Revolutionary Army is an alternative to pirates. The only difference would be that the Peruvian movement and the Shining Path opposed one another, while we have often seen the Revolutionary Army members occasionally working in tandem with or aiding pirates who ideologically align with them. Of course, they wouldn't be helping out someone like Big Mom. Quetzalcoatl. And for our final inspiration, we have the Quetzalcoatl. A prominent Mesoamerican god of the Mayan and Aztec civilizations, the Quetzalcoatl was renowned as the feathered serpent, with its namesake being the prehistoric pterosaur, the Quetzalcoatlus, whose fossil might have been the inspiration behind the deity. Associated with creation, wind, and even the planet Venus and the sun, the Quetzalcoatl was believed to be a god who had taught humans how to create civilizations. What makes this a believable inspiration, however, is the Jolly Roger of Dragon's ship from back when the Revolutionary Army was known as the Freedom Fighters, as the logo looks like a feathered serpent taking flight or a winged dragon. We see a similar dragon with bifurcated wings in the Harley text murals, specifically in the depiction of the first world from the alleged time of Nika and the real gods instead of the devil fruit variant. The creature is shown spewing fire at another serpentine, fire-breathing being rising from the earth. In the depiction of the second world, we see the big bad guy boasting similar wings and horns as its first world variant, but this being is more humanoid than avian. While the Jolly Roger we're discussing can also pass as a sword, multiple parallels cannot be a mere coincidence. Has Dragon awakened his devil fruit? And are his tattoos connected to it? As per Oda's writing style, the fact that we've barely seen Dragon lift a finger means that he is insanely powerful. And why would he not be, as he's one of the most wanted men in the world, the father of the protagonist, and the son of Garp? This would also mean that if he does have a devil fruit, he's awakened it, especially because Luffy has. In fact, Dragon might have awakened his fruit a long time back, which has led to him getting more strength in his purpose and eventually getting his face tattooed. Whether he got the tattoo because he asked for it himself or as a side effect of the awakening is unknown, but the former is more likely, as we've never seen a devil fruit user with an awakened fruit get a permanent physical alteration in their base form. Once a zone awakens, the user begins to embody the fruit model's personality, as seen with Luffy's constant laughter during Gear 5, or Rob Lucci growing more aggressive after adopting his awakened cheetah form. We have very little to go off of for Dragon, but the influence of the model could be why Dragon has his face tattoo, especially because the tail of the Amaru and Dragon's face have eerily similar markings. As it stands, if Dragon consumed his fruit in God Valley in a desperate attempt to escape, he probably knew that the fruit was not a run-of-the-mill devil fruit. Because zone fruits have a mind of their own, Dragon allegedly consuming the raid god Amaru fruit, or any fruit directly inspired by it, means that Dragon already had the necessary will to make the fruit choose him. However, he might not have known exactly how rare the fruit was. Realization of its true nature could be responsible for Dragon getting his facial markings, and this realization might have come in the form of an awakening. The left side of the face having a mark seems to be a recurring theme among the Monkey D family anyways, as both Garp and Luffy have a scar on their left eye. In the case of Luffy, he made the cut himself to prove that he was tough and worthy enough to join Shanks' crew. Based on this logic, Dragon 2 got his tattoo to make a statement. In terms of abilities, we rarely see Dragon in action. We've seen more of Mihawk than Dragon, in fact, which is insane. Either way, we've always seen Dragon with gusts of wind, allegedly coming from the east as per Nami, which ties itself into the Dragon always looking east argument. And a sudden change of weather has often been a thing with Amaru, which means Dragon being able to cause that would more or less confirm his awakening, as we don't really see Luffy truly embody Nika up until Gear 5. An awakened fruit also tells the user to control and manipulate their environment. The winds that accompany Dragon often seem to not be the cause of direct action. While it may have been something he intentionally caused in Logtown, explaining the large scale, the time of Dragon and Sabo's first meeting had wind blowing while in Dragon's presence, almost as if it was a side effect of him simply being there, as he was not physically doing anything to create wind. This would imply that the devil fruit he possesses has possibly been awakened. It's almost as if the winds obey him. Other Logias or mythical zones who possess any kind of elemental control can only become said element or generate it. However, we don't see them having absolute control over what has already been created, which is unlike what we see with Luffy's awakened fruit, where he can turn his surroundings into rubber and use it however he desires. So, Dragon being able to fly, allegedly, referring to the part where he landed on the Wind Grandma after seemingly flying with a rescued Sabo in hand, would imply that he has awakened his devil fruit as he controls the winds to cause his body to levitate and locomote. Causing large-scale weather alteration as seen in Logtown alludes to the same, but most importantly, Dragon is an endgame character, which means he's the strongest of the strong. It just wouldn't make sense for him to not have awakened his fruit. Marvelous verdict! We might get some answers very soon, but do keep in mind that this video explores popular theories among fans and explains them. Nothing has been confirmed as of yet, and we have no idea as to when Oda will tell us what's up. In fact, we might just find out that he's not a devil fruit user at all, but some variant of the ancient rain god himself. Or maybe Oda introduces another advanced category of hockey which allows Dragon to do what he does. All we can do now is wait and find out. With that, today's video comes to an end. What do you think is the source of Dragon's power? Did you enjoy this video? Is there anything you want to add? Let us know in the comments down below, and if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and comment while you're down there. Otherwise, thanks for watching, stay safe out there, and have a marvelous day.